Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. We are going to break down the entire UFC 266 Volkanovski versus Ortega fight card. We're going to talk about every fighter, every fight, the betting odds, our bets, DraftKings plays, monkey knife plays, who we think's going to win, how we're going to win, and everything you could ever need to know to make money. Before we dig into this, go to wewantpicks.com. Sign up for a betting promo, sign up for monkey knife fights, and as we go through this, hit the monkey knife fight lines because they will change and you will lose just like I did last week. Let's jump right in, Jakey. Jacob's here. Let's jump right in.
Big Nasty. Big Nasty's here.
Yeah, no, you're huge. First up, at UFC 266, we have Omar Morales versus Jonathan Pearce. Omar Morales, 11-1 overall, 4-1 in his last 5. Jonathan Pearce, 10-4 overall, 4-1 in his last 5 as well. Omar Morales, he's a good kickboxer. He has really nice kicks. He has solid takedown defense. He's super strong, and he likes to come forward. But what's weird is he doesn't charge forward. He just comes forward. He ends every single combination with a step forward. And before you know it, you're on the other side of the cage or he's holding the center. He walked you down. You didn't even realize it. He only has one loss in his career, and that was a decision loss to Giga Chikadze, which, you know, after the beating that Giga just put on Barboza, that's not looking like such a bad loss right now. He does not have a ton of takedowns in the UFC, actually 3 to be exact. But he is at 100% takedown accuracy and 90% takedown defense. Jonathan Pearce, wrestler, he sets a nice pace. Oh, my goodness. Sets a nice pace, both on his feet and on the ground. He has decent takedowns. He has good jiu-jitsu. He took Kai Kamaka down 4 times in that fight. And he did the same in his debut to Jacob Rosales. He strikes first on the ground, then he moves to submissions, meaning he's looking for a TKO. He's looking for ground and pound over a submission. If a submission's there, he'll take it, and he has a few, but he's really looking to just elbow him in the mouth and get the ref to stop it. In 14 fights, he has only been to a decision twice, 1 win, 1 loss. He leaves it all out there, and it's obvious when you watch him, he's super fun to watch, and he's sort of a take one to give one type striker. If Pearce can stick to a wrestling game plan, like he did with Kai, like he did with Rosales, I think he wins this fight. But Omar Morales has insane takedown defense. We haven't seen him defend a ton, but he's defended enough. He's a good striker. I got to go with Omar Morales. What are your thoughts, Jakey?
Yeah, Omar Morales is kind of why everyone thought Barboza would beat Giga, because Giga against Omar was pretty tentative. I think he still outstruck Omar like 2-1, something like that, and that's why he won the decision. But Giga didn't look like typical Giga in that fight, so I think a lot of people took away from that fight and really thought Barboza was going to be a lay on Giga. Obviously, it didn't happen. I predicted that. I think everyone else was on the other side. But yeah, Morales, the thing that gets me is his low volume. So that Giga fight, he was kind of controlling the pace, right? And he had Giga in those positions against the cage, but he's still just kind of low volume. You mentioned he just kind of plots forward, just bloom, but he really doesn't do anything that pressure. And Jonathan Pearce, man, is just a good old boy. He's a good old boy from Tennessee, and I am adopting him. He's from Tennessee, but I'm adopting him to the Arkansas Wrestling Club because that's the kind of intensity that he brings on the mat. So we got Bryce Mitchell, TJ Brown, Ryan Hall, and now JSP Jonathan Pearce and the Arkansas Wrestling. Listen, Jonathan Pearce, I think, and I made this decision literally 15 minutes before the podcast started.
Wow, great.
Arkansas Wrestling, okay, and if you look at his record, he's already beaten Omar once, so he's already had been competition against an Omar, and he beat him. And this is the quote that gets me. This is what he said in an interview leading up to the fight. He said, and I'm going to say it the way he said it, "I've never seen a striker out wrestle a wrestler," and I believe it. Lock of the week, JSP, Jonathan Pearce.
Where's the S from?
I don't know, but his nickname is JSP.
I know. I just didn't know if in your lock of the week research you knew where the S came from.
I think it's Samuel. I bet it's Samuel.
Yeah, probably Samuel. Lock of the week, first fight out. That's it. Our viewers are gone. They don't need to watch anymore.
I actually have a different lock that's like a lock. But this one, I just love Jonathan Pearce. That quote got me. I've never seen a striker out wrestle a wrestler. I think he's going to get in there, make it nasty, get the takedowns, and really wear down Omar. So
we've seen striker. Go watch any GSP fight and tell me if you've ever seen a striker out wrestle a wrestler. How'd GSP do against Josh Koscheck? Come on with these quotes, Jonathan Pearce. JS. What do you think about so DraftKings value? They're actually both priced really well. Omar Morales, I think Omar Morales wins. There's a lot of upside to him. $8,500. That's not a terrible price point. Considering people are in love with this dude and think he's going to blow through Jonathan Pearce. You're obviously on the other side of it. $7,700. That's a fair price. You'd probably like to get him for a little less, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and actually I have to redo my lineup because literally he wasn't in my lineup and now he's a lock of the week. So I gotta find a way to put him in my lineup here, but we'll get him in for sure. And I love that value with all the takedown attempts.
Yeah, this is an interesting strike line. I mean, 71.5, 84.5. I do think it's a competitive type fight, but Omar Morales, he's been to 2 decisions in his entire life. He's not the most aggressive person on the planet. I said he comes forward. He ends his exchanges with a step forward, so he's moving forward, but he's not just throwing wild and loose.
And I don't have the stats in front of me. Maybe you do. I think this is for like 10 in a row for lock of the week.
You didn't even join the show last week, and you still lost a lock of the week because you hopped in the comment section, said Ryan Span's a lock, left, and then Ryan Span lost.
So. I was never in a live chat.
Yeah, I bet.
Is my account compromised?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me right now? Somebody was impersonating me picking for Ryan Span. Yeah. Oh my God. There's no way. That's how I know it's not me.
Well, Omar Morales, a minus 158 favorite. Jonathan Pearce, a plus 138 underdog. I think it's a pretty competitive fight. I do think Omar Morales gets it done. I think it's with a stoppage if he does. Let's put it this way. If we're looking at the Monkey Knife Fight numbers, I mean, if Omar Morales loses, he's held down the whole time. He's not getting 71 strikes off. If he wins, he's putting Jonathan Pearce out. So I think less is the Monkey Knife Fight play. What do you think?
I completely agree.
All right. Well, isn't that just so exciting? I don't have any bets on this at all, but if you do want to grab a bet, wewantpicks.com/bets. We have promos.
I already have one person I'm putting the house on. I'm putting my second house on Jonathan.
Okay, your second house. Fantastic. wewantpicks.com/bets. Grab yourself a promo up to $2,500 deposit match. And wewantpicks.com/MKF. Hit the Monkey Knife Fight lines early. I like the less here. They move throughout the week. If you're watching, don't be lazy. Hit the line before it moves. Last week, I waited till Saturday morning, and that didn't work out for me. Hit the early lines before they move. Next up, at UFC 266, we have Matt Semelsberger versus Martin Sano. This is a bizarre fight. I'll break it down in a second, but this is sort of a weird situation going on here. But Matt Semelsberger, 8-3 overall, 4-1 in his last 5, coming off of a loss. Martin Sano, 4-2 in his entire career, with a draw as well. His last 5 fights were a draw, a loss, and 2 wins. And it was 5 years ago. This is a favor to Nick Diaz type setup. So Matt Semelsberger, he marches forward. He's an aggressive striker, solid leg kicks, goes to the body well. The marching forward can get him in trouble at times. If you watch the breakdown of Matt Semelsberger versus Chaos Williams, that was something we were worried about, is him just marching forward into a big Chaos Williams strike. That marching forward, like I said, could be an issue. In this fight, I don't know if there's going to be many issues here, but Santos doesn't possess the power that a Chaos Williams does. So Matt Semelsberger coming forward shouldn't be that big of an issue. Martin Sano, he's almost a 500 fighter, right? You got to factor in the draw. So he's had 7 fights.
He has only twice as many wins as losses.
Yeah. Well, and a draw. So he has 7 fights. A little more than half are actual wins. He hasn't fought in 5 years, coming off of a draw and 2 losses in a row. If he was already in the UFC, they would have cut him. But he's friends and trains with the Diaz crew. So honestly, getting him on this card, it's similar to when Artem would be on all the Connor cards. No offense to the greatest of all time.
Do not put his name in your mouth, sir. The GOAT we respect it on this podcast.
In 2001, the last time that Martin fought, he's a busy guy on his feet. He's pretty good on the ground. But let's be honest, he's not a UFC caliber fighter. He's here as a favor. I'm picking and betting against that the entire way. Unfortunately, the odds makers are onto it too. These are pretty wide odds here. They know that. So I'm probably going to wait for a prop that makes some sense. But I mean, Matt Semelsberger is a pretty obvious pick here. I mean, anything could happen, right? Martin Sano hasn't fought in 5 years. He might have just changed his whole life, and he's an absolute killer in that gym right now. I doubt it. Semelsberger's the pick. Semelsberger will probably be in my DraftKings lineup. But Martin is tough, so I don't think it'll be a 2-second stoppage, but who the hell knows, man. 5 years, hasn't won a fight in a very, very long time. Jakey Poo, what do you think?
Semelsberger's going to win, but the only thing that I'm going to take notice in this fight is you mentioned the long layoff by Sano, and he is with the Diaz camp. If he comes out and looks decently sharp, because he wasn't really that great to begin with, but if he comes out after the long layoff and looks decently sharp, that kind of tells me that Nick Diaz is going to be ready. If he's got this long layoff and Nick Diaz has a long layoff and they're both in the same camp and he's coming out looking sharp, you got to imagine that Nate's getting the right training and he's going to be looking sharp as well. So if Martin comes out and looks good with that betting line for Nick Diaz, I might throw some money at Nick Diaz, just assuming that he's going to come out and look sharp as well. So with that said, Matt's going to win this fight.
Yeah, there's a couple Diaz crew on this card. And honestly, it has to be Nick Diaz saying, I'll only fight if you do X. And good for him for taking care of his people. He's putting them in harm's way, but it is what it is. The odds are accurate. DraftKings pricing, that's also accurate. I will probably spend the $9,400 on Matt Semelsberger, probably. Monkey knife fight, that's an interesting one because, Martin Sano, he's going to be way outclassed here, but let's assume he's a tough guy, right? Like if I'm looking at his losses, a decision and a KO in round one. So, 42 is just such a low line, which makes that hard. If I have to play this line, I'm going to go less. Matt Semelsberger is going to come charging forward, throw a bunch of crap. Martin Sano hasn't fought in 5 years. I imagine that doesn't go well for him. What do you think about those lines?
I completely agree.
Okay. Is that how this is going to?
Okay, I'll disagree. Listen, I think Martin Sano comes out and looks great. I think his chin holds up. I think this 100 strikes. I'll go more and more.
But another trash pick from Jacob. Unbelievable. Get it together, dude. People rely on us for solid advice.
You'll see. That's my most confident pick, too.
This should be I don't know. It should be fun. I like Matt Semelsberger. I'm glad that he's going to be put back on track. So we'll see what happens. I'll watch it. A prop bet's the only way to go. I'm not spending minus 400 on anybody unless it's Amanda Nunes. Next up at UFC 266, we have Uros Medic versus Jalin Turner. Uros Medic 7-0 overall, so he's obviously 5-0 in his last 5. I have the wrong record there, so don't mind that. He's 7-0 overall. He's undefeated. That 8-3 is wrong. Jalin Turner 10-5 overall. That 4-2 on the screen is also wrong. 10-5 overall. He is 3-2 in his last 5. This is an interesting matchup because the odds makers essentially have it as a pick'em. The line has moved. Throughout the week, but it's essentially a pick'em. Uros Medic has legit power, legit striking technique. He comes out fast. He can be a bit wild, and it's hard to really break him down in detail because he has a 100% finish rate. He's only has 7 fights. He's only seen the second round 1 time in 7 fights, and it was less than a minute. I honestly don't know how he's going to handle any adversity. If he gets in trouble, I don't know how he calls his way out. We don't know how tough he is. It's impossible to tell, right? There's just not enough information there. But the reality is he's a very good striker. He's got legit power. He comes forward. He's fast, and he has real killer instinct. If he feels like he has you rocked, and if he feels like there's blood in the water, he will go for it. And if you watch the last time I broke him down, I was way off. I was trashing his record. I was talking about he's in Alaska. How good could the Alaskan competition be? and just really hammered that home.
Yeah, and do you remember who was kind of right about him? Do you remember?
Nick Newell. Nick Newell was. I have the quote right in front of me. Nick Newell said he looks like an unathletic dork, but he has power and solid striking. Honestly, pretty similar to Sean O'Malley type situation. So,
you have any other quotes on there? Because
that's basically
spot
it.
On the doctor. I was spot on the doctor.
That's basically it. Jalin Turner, good boxer who somehow manages to come forward and keep the fight at range. He's stupid tall. He's 6'3", so he's normally towering over his opponents. But Uros Medic is 6'1", so he's not a short guy himself. He's coming off a nice submission win, but it's been a year. He hasn't fought in a full year. He's pretty well-rounded. Honestly, I think Jalen's the more technical striker and the more well-rounded fighter, but I just think Medic's pressure and kicks will probably sort of discredit the superior technique, and I think Uros Medic gets it done. And this is basically a pick 'em. I know the money has moved quite a bit, and honestly, if you like Jalin at plus money, grab it, because I do think this is a close fight. What do you think? No, sorry, not a close fight. I think it's sort of a toss-up fight because we haven't seen Uros in trouble. We don't know how he deals with adversity. And if Jalin comes out there, puts it on him, keeps it at range, uses that length, we don't know how Uros is going to react.
There's a reason why Uros has never been in trouble, because he's never been in trouble. He's like one of the most dominant fighters I've ever seen. It's a short career. Like you said, he's never been out of the first round like once in his career. And last time just storms across the cage and finishes the fight. That's what the doctor does. I mentioned earlier in the card that I put my house on someone on this card. Uros Medic at a pick-em money he should be a 2 or 3 to 1 favorite easy in this matchup. Jalin Turner has the length, but there's nowhere in this fight that Medic is going to go where he's going to lose this fight. He's going to come across. He's going to dominate. I feel bad for Jalin that he has to take this beating. Uros Medic, the doctor, was going to be my lock of the week before I found Arkansas boy. The doctor gets it done and gets it done in unbelievable fashion. This is a robbery that I'm about to do to these casinos. Robbery. Getting him at minus 110. It's already moving. He's going to be a minus 250 by the time the fight starts. Once it is moving. Film, I'm not done. Once people start watching film on this guy, those odds are going to go crazy. The whales are going to come in. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think there's just not enough Medic out there to know how he's going to deal with adversity. I get what you're saying. He's my pick. I flipped. He was not my pick last time. I've learned my lesson. I discounted Alaskan MMA. I no longer will trash Alaska MMA, but Jalin Turner's legit. Jalin Turner has a ton of experience. I'll update this graphic. Jalin Turner has a ton of experience. It's definitely a closer fight. I agree with the odds here, honestly. What is funny is I think whoever wins, and there's a few fights on this card where I think it's close to a pick 'em, and then whoever wins, it's going to look like a minus 500 favorite. You know what I mean? Like I think it's
it's going to be you're trying to allude so you can put that in the recap. Oh look, I said he probably was going to look like a. Listen, this is my guy. Uros is my new guy. I have Pat Sabatini at 145, who I think is going to be either a future champion or really compete for a champion. I really think that the doctor will be the 155 champion or real close to it in about 5 years. Within 5 years.
Well. We'll see what happens. DraftKings, $8,400. I think he is a good price at $8,400. I mean, if his trajectory continues, he's going to score well over 100 points, and that's very affordable for a guy that's probably pretty live for a knockout. And if you're playing Monkey Knife Fight, I wouldn't even mess with the line. Less is probably the play, honestly. That's actually less is probably a solid play, but don't even mess with the line. Just throw Uros and Knockout Kings. And if you don't know Knockout Kings, any 3 fighters, if one of them gets a knockout, you get a 25% return, so profit. If 2 of them, you get 2.5, 3 of them, you get 6. So wewantpicks.com/MKF. They're both pretty affordable. So if you're that confident in Uros, wewantpicks.com/bets, grab yourself a deposit match up to $2,500. Throw it on the Uros Medic money line. Next up at UFC 266, we have Karl Roberson versus Nick Maximov. Nick Maximov 6-0 overall, so obviously 5-0 in his last 5. Karl Roberson, Baby K Robinson, 9-4, only 2-3 in his last 5, coming off of 2 losses in a row. Nick Maximov, very solid BJJ, guys. Nick Maximov, a very solid BJJ guy who knows what he's good at and he sticks to it. His striking's pretty raw. His takedowns are okay. This is his first official UFC fight after a win last year at heavyweight. So this is a middleweight fight. His win last year on the Contender Series was at heavyweight. He's undefeated, but it's a very hollow record. If you dig into that record, he did not fight a single person with a winning record until the Contender Series fight. So he had 5 fights. Not one of them had a winning record, and 2 of them didn't even have a win at all. But he did win that Contender Series fight against a guy 2 weight classes above him, so he earned his spot. The problem is I can't look at his record and say, oh, he's 6-0. This could be the start of a 20-0 run because, 5 of those wins were just absolute nonsense. Karl Roberson, he's a well-rounded guy, solid striking, a few sneaky submissions in his back pocket. The problem for him seems to be that the UFC uses him to get people nice wins or back on track. They threw him in there with Glover 2019, Martin Vettori last year, Brendan Allen this year. But at the end of the day, he does have solid skills, legit UFC experience. I honestly think the UFC set this up to be a gift for Maximov to try to give him a nice win, keep that streak going. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We watched Karl beat Wellington Turman, trains with Glover. Dan trained with Wellington a month ago. And Wellington Turman took him down 4 times. He's a better grappler than Maximov is, and he couldn't put Karl Roberson away. He couldn't beat Karl Roberson. So I think Roberson, although if you look at his losses, there's a bunch of all 4 of his losses are submissions, and he's fighting a jiu-jitsu guy, but you cannot make your picks just looking at Tapology and looking at records and making a decision from there. Because the reality is, every one of those submissions had a little asterisk next to it, a little caveat. Wellington Turman's not putting him away. I don't think Nick, with 6 fights, Maximov, is putting Karl Roberson away. He is my pick. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another one of those Nick Diaz guys. And actually, he's nicknamed like the prodigy of the Diaz camp. So he's supposed to be like the next big thing. But I think there was a mistake putting him against Karl Roberson as well, because you mentioned he's a grappler. He's got takedowns, but some of his takedowns I saw were him just like double arms out, just kind of like running after people's legs and stuff. And the Nick Diaz camp isn't really a wrestling camp. You see, They're all jiu-jitsu guys. They're very good at that. But if you ever watch, especially Nate, he's unbelievable on the ground, but he's never going to get the fight to the ground if he doesn't want it, or if he wants to get to the ground. So, the grappling is going to be an interesting factor in this. If Karl Robinson can keep his back off the mat, he'll win this fight. But if he finds his back on the mat, I think he's in real trouble. So it really is. I agree with the odds. I think it's a coin toss whether that happens or not, because Karl Robinson has decent takedown defense. But I'm going to steal a line from what Dan always says. This Nick guy, he's 23 years old, and those guys tend to learn fast. So, if he's starting to pick up the wrestling to match with the jiu-jitsu, he could surprise us here and come out and look really, really sharp. So I'm staying away from this completely. I have no idea what's going to happen. I kind of think I would like to see Nick win, the young new prodigy coming up, but I wouldn't be surprised if Karl just kind of stuffs some takedowns and really pieces him up.
Yeah, and I completely agree with staying away from it. So we're a pick show. You got to do picks. I picked Karl Roberson. Mostly because Nick is so inexperienced. And if it was 6-0 and it was against decent competition, or at least competition, all right, there's something to work with there, right? 5 of those fights were losing records or no wins whatsoever. He only had 1 win. He did not look good. Granted, it was at heavyweight. So there's not much to go off of. So I agree. I'm not spending any of this money in DraftKings because there's too many question marks. If I do the monkey knife fight, honestly, I might go less because I think Karl Roberson either overwhelms Nick because he's just so inexperienced and he's new and he hasn't had any real adversity, or Nick submits Karl Roberson. And either way, I think it'll be less, right? Maybe more for Karl, less for Maximov if you think Karl's going to beat him for 3 rounds. But, I'm not going to bet it either. And every week I have been up on bets. It's been like 2 months I haven't lost. And it's because I pick my shots. I don't force anything. There's nothing to do here. There's too many unknowns. There's not enough experience to really base any solid infrastructure pick on it. So I'm going to stay away from this. I might do some monkey knife fight. I think I like the less there. Like I said, either a pretty quick submission from Nick, if he can get it to the ground, or Karl is just going to overwhelm, and you'll see what that inexperience does. Yeah.
Oh, you want me to go? I was going to give a good little breakdown there.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I love that 84.5 line for Nick, because I think it's definitely less on that one. He's not a striker, and even when he gets to the ground, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. That Karl run, the Karl one, I will say, with Nick not being a wrestler, but he's going to try for takedowns, there could be those positions where he's just kind of riding his hip against the cage, and Karl's just pop, 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 pop on the side of his head, and those add up quick. So that's the only thing that would scare me with the less.
56 is a low number. 56 is a low number. So let's put it this way. If you think it goes to a decision, I would do more Roberson, less on Maximov. And if you think there's a stoppage, then just less on both, is how I would break that down. But you don't have to play everything. Restraint is key.
Restraint.
Next up, at UFC 266, we have Manon Fiorot versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Manon Fiorot, 7-1 overall, 5-0 in her last 5. And I've ridden the Manon train a few times. I've picked her twice. She's won both times. Mayra Bueno Silva, 7-1-1 overall, coming off of that draw to Montana De La Rosa. Then a win, a loss, and 2 wins before that. This is an interesting matchup, honestly. I'm 2-0 picking Manon. I grabbed her last 2. She beat the first ever lock of the week. So Jacob was off to a horrific start with the lock of the week.
The lock of the week broke her arm in like 10 seconds in the first
You
round.
mean Manon Fiorot broke the lock of the week's arm?
I think she snapped her own arm to try and make
her
the
own
fight
arm.
fair.
She broke her own arm punching air.
To try and make the fight fair.
Okay. She beat the very first lock of the week, Victoria Leonardo, last year. Lots of experience, even with her short record. She's a nasty striker, killer instinct, tons of finishing power. Even when she gets taken down, she has the fight IQ. She has the scramble abilities. She works up immediately. This is a big step up of competition for her, honestly. She likes to fight at range. She likes to pick her shots. So I do like Manon quite a bit. Mayra Bueno Silva. She's also a pretty good striker. She has solid power, good kicks. She likes charging forward and throwing from there. She also has some grappling in her back pocket. I wouldn't say she's a good grappler, but she's a grappler. She can make that happen. I imagine what's going to happen here is she's going to get picked apart in her feet. Then she's going to look to grapple. She doesn't have great takedowns. Manon Fiorot pops right back up. I think these odds are spot on. I think DraftKings is spot on. I think Monkey Knife Fight, that's a really hard line. The only risk here is that Mayra can hold down Manon. Nobody else has been able to. I don't think she'll be able to, but that's the risk. Manon's the pick. I like her quite a bit in this matchup. What do you think, and are you still holding a grudge?
Yeah, so actually there's another layer to the story, because Manon, I did pick against her in her first fight, made it lock of the week. And then she was originally supposed to fight Marina Moroz. And I made Marina Moroz my lock of the week against Manon again, but then that fight got dropped. So now it would make sense to make Mayra, kind of a triple backup lock of the week in this fight. But I'll tell you what, Manon got my respect in that last fight. Not only the first fight against Victoria Leonardo, but her last fight, the short notice fight. I mean, she is just an absolute monster, man. She's got that killer mentality, and she has real power. There's not a lot of flyweights with some real power. She has finishing power and finishing abilities. So on the feet, Bueno Silva's got no shot. I think she's got to grapple. I don't know if she's going to be able to get the takedowns. You mentioned, I think she's a better grappler than you give her credit for. She's mentioned that she's even a better grappler at 125. I just don't know if she's going to be able to get the takedowns, because Manon is just so ferocious that sometimes when you're on your back foot, Angelo, me and you wrestling, it's hard to get takedowns off your back foot. You want to be going forward. So I don't know if she's going to be able to get him, but if she gets him, she could win this fight. So that's the only wild card here. If you think she's going to get those takedowns, that's incredible value at $700, because she's just going to ride and control her. But if you think that Manon is really going to be, the aggressive fighter she has been, that's also good value at $9,100. So it's just kind of whatever you feel in this fight. But I think Manon was probably going to win.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I mean,
let me hold on. I forgot one more point. Sorry. Bueno Silva actually fought Marina Moroz, who I had picked against Manon. I haven't watched that fight, but I think it was an absolute war. It was a decision loss to Moroz. So I'm going to watch that fight and then decide on Bueno Silva.
Yeah, I mean, she's the grappling is
the Ukrainian boxing. Remember Ukrainian boxing? We remember that.
Yeah, no, we do. Yeah. The grappling could be an issue, but Manon, she pops right back up. She has solid fight IQ. She hits the mat. She knows exactly what she's supposed to do. She's not going to play around in guard, look for something, no sweep. She's just working right back to her feet. She knows exactly what she needs to do. So I like the fight IQ. I like the power, the striking ability, the footwork, the volume, all of it. Manon Fiorot, definitely the pick. DraftKings, I don't know. There's a lot of 9,000 type fighters that I think are worth it. She's probably worth it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to spend that. The betting odds, honestly, I hope if Manon was like a minus 190, I'd hit that. So I'll see if that line moves and maybe I'll touch it. And what do you think of the Monkey Knife Fight line? This is a tricky line.
Probably less.
Probably, but
Bueno Silva is so tough. Like I said,
that's the problem.
She fought Moroz, who's I kind of off topic, but she was the coach of the Ukrainian women's national boxing team, and then in a decision. So she's tough. I don't think she might not get put away. So those could add up quick.
Yeah, I mean it might be more than because this is a hard line. This is a hard line, and we'll break down this line with Chris Riley tomorrow. Chris sets these Monkey Knife Fight lines. He's kind enough to offer his time to talk about his lines, how he got there, why he got there. We'll talk about this one tomorrow because I'm very curious about this one. This is a hard line, so we'll see. We'll see. You guys let me know what you're going to do in the comments. wewantpicks.com/MKF. You will get a free $100 deposit match. And if you want to play some bets, wewantpicks.com/bets. We have a 100% deposit match, a 125% deposit match, options for everybody. Next up at UFC 266, we have Taila Santos versus Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi, the women's smiling Sam Alvey, 25-18, alternating wins and losses. So I already know Jacob's pick. She's 2-3 in her last 5, coming off of a loss. Taila Santos, 17-1, coming off of 2 wins. Roxanne Modafferi, at this point, she's a legend. I mentioned she's very similar to Smiling Sam Alvey, and that's because, without the 14 fight,
she actually wins. Yeah, I was gonna say,
without the 14 fight losing streak, she shows up. She's happy. She's nice. She's smiling, and she's just ready to go. Ready to go. She is not athletic at all.
She's the girl. She just like a quick story. She was who'd she fight that blew out her knee, and instead of making the other girl stand up, she went to the ground because she felt bad. She literally went to the ground so the girl could grapple because she felt bad that the girl blew her knee out.
Wasn't that Casey Barber?
I can't remember. I'm trying to look. Let me look on the record. Yeah, Macy Barber. Yeah,
Macy Barber. Yeah. Yep. Because her dad, Macy Barber's dad, lost his mind, screaming, yelling, saying bad things on the internet about Roxanne, who's the nicest person in the world. So she's not athletic at all, but she is super tough, and she has incredible fight IQ. She makes up for physical abilities with just an understanding of the sport and what she should do and where she should be and how she should handle certain situations. Skill-wise, honestly, her striking's awkward, and she really uses it just to set up clinch work and takedowns. She's much better at jiu-jitsu than she is at striking, and her path to victory in every fight is always to slow down her opponent, take away any athletic abilities that they may have, and then grind out a win, whether it's against the cage or on the ground. She has she's not a stoppage threat at all. She's not finishing anybody, but she's also impossible to finish, which makes all of her fights very interesting. Taila Santos is the opposite side of that spectrum. She's ridiculously athletic. She has a ton of stoppages. Her boxing is fantastic. Her grappling is also really good. And from what we've seen, Taila has solid fight IQ, not Roxanne level, but we have seen Taila make correct decisions in fights. If you look at her fight against Molly McCann, she took her down 5 times. She was hyper aware of Molly McCann's striking, completely changed her game plan. I mean, probably the game plan going into it, but changed her natural I'm a striker style and went in there, took her down 5 times. I highly doubt she will be losing a striking exchange and need to take this to the ground. But the point of that, it just shows that she can make adjustments. It shows that she can win anywhere. It shows that she is smart enough to understand strengths and weaknesses in these fights. She's better than Roxanne absolutely everywhere. I think she cruises to a decision. She's minus 400 now. So I'm going to wait for a prop bet or something because I'm never going to spend minus 400, but she's as good of a lock as you can get. And honestly, the prop bet to grab, I don't even know the odds. I don't know if it's out yet. The prop bet to grab here is Taila Santos by decision because Roxanne's impossible to finish. What do you think?
Oh, by decision. For some reason, I thought when you said that, I was like, you contradicted yourself, but you were right. I was wrong. Yeah, you mentioned the pattern. Let's go over the pattern real quick.
That's why you laugh, because that's what you have.
That's what I have in Roxanne does. So dating back to 2014, we're talking about Roxanne. We have win-win loss, win-win loss, win-win loss. Then it goes win loss, win loss, win loss, win loss. And honestly, no kidding aside, this just feels like one of those fights that Roxanne is going to win. She shouldn't win it. They set her up against another prospect, and it just feels like for some reason she's going to win. I don't see a lot of killer instinct in Santos. Honestly, I think there's a time where this the fight finds its way to the ground, and there's a weird scramble. And I think I'm going to put a wild, weird bet on Roxanne by submission. That's my big call of the week. It just feels like this is one of those fights where Roxanne just going to find a way to win.
Insane odds on that.
Huh?
You'll get insane odds.
I know. I'm just saying.
By submission.
I'm just saying. It just feels like it. She shouldn't win. I wouldn't bet on her, but I'm taking a little flyer here and following the pattern. You got to follow the numbers.
Well, and Jester hit up the comments saying, what do you think about Roxanne plus 3.5? If you don't know what the plus 3.5 bet is, you basically buy 3.5 points on the judge's scorecard. So all that means is if it goes to a decision, as long as Roxanne wins one round, she can lose 2 rounds, lose the decision, but as long as she wins 1 round, you have then purchased 3.5 more points on top of that, and you win your bet, you cash your bet. It is a great bet for situations like this where you have a pretty big underdog who you think can win a single round. The problem is I don't know if Roxanne can win a single round. That bet is perfect for these type situations, plus 300. So if you do the plus 3.5 points, you'll probably get plus 200, plus 150, something like that. She doesn't get finished. I don't know if she can win a round.
Roxanne by submission, plus 1,200.
I mean, I might grab the plus 3.5. That's a hard one. Anyway, the only place you are going to find that prop bet, and I'm telling you right now, it is one of the most fun prop bets.
That's plus 200, that prop bet.
Yeah, so okay, plus 200. The only place you're going to find that prop bet is if you go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Jeez, shut up.
That's win inside the distance decision. No, actually, I don't have the plus 3.5 yet. Sorry.
That's another bet. We'll talk about that. Anyway, wewantpicks.com/bets. We have 3 different options. Click on the Bet Online one. They have the best prop bets. The other prop bet that might work for this fight is wins inside the distance decision, no action. All that means is if Roxanne Modafferi stops, damn it, I'm going to do that bet. That's a fantastic bet.
If Roxanne Modafferi 60 though, you don't think Roxanne's going to stop her? You would do that for Santos, because Santos could lose a decision to Roxanne just being nastier than her.
But Roxanne, all right, so plus 200 for Roxanne Modafferi wins inside the distance decision, no action means if Roxanne Modafferi somehow stops Taila Santos, you get paid. If she loses a decision, which is how she will lose if she loses, you get a full refund. A full refund, no skin off your back. You didn't lose any money. The bet's a push. That's a solid bet. I like that quite a bit. Next up, at UFC 266, we have Chris Daukaus versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. I nailed that. Chris Daukaus, 11-3 overall, riding a 4-fight win streak. Shamil, 20-5, 3-2 in his last 5. This fight has been booked 3 times, I think, or this is the 3rd time since July. It is a battle of the heavyweight strikers. They tried to do it in July. We're finally going to get it in September. Shamil is a solid boxer with good counter strikes and decent wrestling. I actually think he's somewhat of an accomplished wrestler, I think, like technically speaking. But he's not been very effective in the UFC with his wrestling. He took down Derek Lewis 4 times and was still knocked out. He only has 3 takedowns outside of that fight. And he's somewhat of a brawler. He can make it a firefight. It definitely has more power than Daukaus does. I mean, Daukaus has a ton of knockouts, and he does that really well. But a lot of that I feel like is speed and angles, where Shamil has just more raw power. But he's not as clean of a striker as Daukaus is. We haven't seen him fight in 2 years. And 2 years ago, in his last fight, he was knocked out by Curtis Blades, and he's now 40 years old. Chris Daukaus, very good striker, solid boxing, very fast for the heavyweight division. He ties in his combinations well. He should definitely be the more technical fighter here, but he definitely needs to avoid the big shots from Shamil. Even if Shamil comes with a grapple-heavy game plan, Daukaus is a black belt on the ground, but we've never seen him taken down. I haven't seen him on his back. 0 takedowns in the UFC. So there's question marks there. We don't know what that means. We don't know what he's going to look like when he's on the mat. We have no idea what that, what's going to happen in that situation. He may get taken down and be there for 15 minutes and that's it. He may pop right back up. We just haven't seen it. His takedown defense has held up really well. But I don't think this fight's going to end up on the mat. I think Chris comes forward, uses technical striking, puts on a pace, and honestly should put Shamil out. I think Chris Daukaus wins this. I love Chris Daukaus at $8,800 for DraftKings. And at the 1.5 round line, that's a hard line. I mean, probably the over, honestly, but that's a hard round line. But I do like Daukaus quite a bit in this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Chris Daukaus, honestly, is a real deal prodigy in the heavyweight division. And I think the UFC knows it. And I think this is a lamb to slaughter in this situation with Shamil. The only thing that would worry me would be if Shamil was like a big heavyweight with a really, really good gas tank and wrestling on top of it, because we've never really seen Chris in late in fights. He's had a ton of first round finishes because he is that good. So that's the only kind of real question mark is how is his gas tank lately if he has to go there. But Shamil, the reason he lost that Derek Lewis fight, he ended up on his back against Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis even like kind of halfway took him down because
he did. Yeah, he got to take down that fight.
So he doesn't have a gas tank either. He's not an incredible striker. I think Chris is the real deal. I think Chris is going to be in my lineup, and this is like the quadruple lock of the week, knockout kings, whatever you got to do. I'll put a bet on Chris to finish this fight. I think he's a real deal, and I think this was set up for him to win.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, listen, Shamil, like I said, I think he is like an accomplished wrestler. I think like if you do your research, wrestling will come up over and over, but the reality is he doesn't use it in his fights. And when he did use it, he still lost. So he's not like this dominant wrestler that can just impose his will. He's not Curtis Blades. And we watched him get knocked out by Curtis Blades, stopped by Curtis Blades. So, I think this is a pretty straightforward win for Chris Daukaus. Minus 190, honestly, those are not bad odds. They're really not. So I think a moneyline bet is probably a solid bet here. I love him in DraftKings. And Chris Daukaus wins inside the distance. You'll get even better than minus 190. And that's the most likely outcome in this situation. So I like that there too. So you'll probably see in the betting breakdown a couple of Chris Daukaus bets here. What do you think? You agree with all of that?
Yeah, you can get Chris Daukaus. This is how, I mean, even these guys believe in him. I link a little bit more than DraftKings because by KO, TKO is plus 120. So, I mean, that's still almost even money on that. So,
yeah, I'm not seeing it. And what I'll tell you right now is, so I've managed fighters for 15 years. One of the fighters that I've managed for a very long time.
So here you go, real quick before I forget. The line has actually moved to 210 for Chris Daukaus, but you can get him inside the distance decision no action for 170, which kind of covers you a little bit.
Potentially, yeah. I'll have to dig in a little deeper, but definitely a Chris Daukaus play. I've managed fighters for a while. Parker Porter is a fighter that I used to manage. We just did an interview with him, a month or so ago for his fight. He fought Chris Daukaus on short notice, made his UFC debut, and we talked about it. We talked about the Chris Daukaus fight. And honestly, Parker was pretty candid. And what I took away from that fight is the way you beat Chris Daukaus is you light up his legs. Parker Porter landed a solid leg kick, only one. And he was saying
I don't know if
that
I've seen Shamil ever throw a leg kick.
He hasn't, and that's where I'm going with this. But just the story and then that, where when the referee was holding Parker's hand and Chris Daukaus' hand, Bruce Buffer was standing behind them with the card and saw Daukaus' leg all bright red, made a comment to Parker like, look what you did. And Daukaus looked over and nodded like, yeah. So that was one leg kick. So if Shamil factored that in, somehow works leg kicks into his game, maybe there's a potential hole there. But so far, Chris Dawkins has looked like an animal. I don't see this one going any different. Looks like, as you mentioned, the line is moving. People are onto it. I would definitely grab a bet after we're filming. I will probably grab a few of those before the line moves too much. wewantpicks.com/bets to get your promo. Monkey knife fight line. My gut says less, but 32 strikes is nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, no comment.
Yeah, that's honestly, that is a hard monkey knife fight line. It really is. Probably less, but that's a monkey knife fight line. Monkey knife fight lines are out right now. As you're watching this, have us up in one window, play monkey knife fight in the other window before these lines move, because they do move when the money comes in. Next up at UFC 266, we have Dan Hooker versus Nasrat Haqparast. And you know this is a good card when this is on the prelims. This is a good fight. Dan Hooker, 20-10 overall, riding a 2-fight loss streak. Nasrat, 13-3 overall, coming off of 2 wins. This should be an absolute awesome fight with 2 big-time strikers. Dan Hooker is a very good striker with an enormous amount of heart. We watched him in the fight of the century against Paul Felder and then just do that all over again with Dustin Poirier. Unfortunately, he took a ton of damage in those fights. And then he was put out against Michael Chandler in Michael Chandler's debut. Dan Hooker is definitely the more technical fighter in this matchup. At least I think he has more technical striking against Nasrat. But I think he peaked, honestly. I think he needs more time off. That fight against Felder was a war. That fight against Dustin Poirier, a war. Michael Chandler put his lights out. And here he is again against a striker with an insane amount of power. And I don't, how long's it been? 6-7 months, something like that. He needs, honestly, he needs to heal. He needs to heal. His path to victory here is to make this as ugly and dirty as possible. If he has a war or turns this into a war with Nasrat, like he did with Poirier, like he did with Felder, I think he crumbles Nasrat. I don't think Nasrat has that same level of heart that we saw from Felder, that we saw from Dustin Poirier. That is his path. Unfortunately for him, his path to victory is to make it a grueling war and take even more damage in this fight. Nasrat, a very good striker, coming off of a win over a short notice opponent, over Rafa Garcia. He has very good takedown defense, and even if he gets taken down, he pops right back up to his feet. If you go back to the Alex Munoz fight, he defended 8 takedowns. 8. And Alex Munoz is a nasty wrestler. He's the freaking wrestling coach at Team Alpha Male. I love Nasrat in this fight. I really love him. I already put a money line bet on this, plus money. You know, Dan Hooker, man. Dan Hooker's very good. I think Dan Hooker peaked. I think Dan Hooker's taken way too much damage, and he needs to take like a year off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they both had kind of weird flash knockouts. The difference is Nasrat was just kind of that weird jet, that straight by Drew Dober or whatever. It was very weird that he got knocked out that way. And honestly, I didn't trust his chin after that. I think I picked against him his last 2 fights, but his chin has held up. You mentioned Alex Munoz. We just saw Alex Munoz throwing bombs. We know how hard he can hit. Rafa Garcia is the exact same thing, throws bombs. So he's proven that his chin has withstood damage after his flash knockout. Dan Hooker, on the other hand, you mentioned 6 months ago, he just got knocked out by Michael Chandler after those absolute wars. I agree with you. I think this is a battle of whose chin holds up. And at this point, I would trust Nasrat's more. We also got to mention, too, we don't know where Dan Hooker's at. We don't know where he's at. He's not supposed to arrive in the States until we don't know. He's had to
I think Thursday. Thursday is when he arrives for his fight. Listen, he's flying from the other side of the world. He's not flying from England. England's not that bad. He's flying from Australia or New Zealand, whatever the hell.
Whatever it is. Me and the family go there once every 6 weeks. I'll tell you that even in first class, it's rough. That's a long flight. So we don't know when he's going to arrive, how he's going to look when he arrives. He's even been dealing with this visa issue for like the last few weeks. So how much is
he was tweeting? Wasn't he tweeting the president?
Yeah, he literally said like everyone needs a tweet, and then he said like the squeaky wheel wheel gets a grease, So I like Dan Hooker as a person, as a fighter. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I just can't trust his chin at this point. And Nasrat's been able to hold up, and Nasrat's got the power, and I think he's just as technical. So I actually think there's great value at $7,500 at plus 135, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. He's probably gonna make his way in my lineup.
Yeah, I already did the money line bet. That's already been placed. Honestly, best case scenario for everybody involved here would be Dan Hooker does not get his visa. He has to rest. He forces his body to rest.
Got it.
Oh, well.
That's why he said he got it like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I know. He comes in on Thursday, but until he's here, he's not here, right? Best case scenario, something happens. Nasrat gets a last-minute opponent, knocks that dude out, and Dan Hooker can rest. I like Dan. I want Dan to have a longer career than he's going to have. And maybe I'm way wrong, and I'm going to get nasty comments on Sunday morning after Dan Hooker wins by knockout. Listen, man, I've been around this sport a very long time at, managing fighters. I have seen my fighters have phenomenal chins, take the wrong punch on the wrong day and not take the time they need to get back right, and the chin never recovers. I've seen others take the wrong shot on the wrong day, go down hard, take the time, and come back, and the chin.
That's like the big thing that's going around with the Ben Askren Jake Paul thing was everyone now is like, oh, he took that beating from Robbie because Robbie's about to fight, so they're looking at that fight again. Like, oh man, Ben Askren took that beating from Robbie Lawler. How did Jake Paul knock him out? It's like, did you forget what Masvidal did to his chin? I mean, sometimes your chin just never recovers, and that's how that stuff happens.
I mean, that's literally how it goes. It takes a long time. It takes a very long time. I mean, Dan will tell you when we do some filming later in the week with Dan, he'll talk through. He's had some personal experiences with training with Hector Lombard, just getting lit up in training. Things escalate, and it takes a long time for things to recover. Either way, I bet on Nasrat. Nasrat's my pick. Nasrat will be in my DraftKings lineup. The Monkey Knife Fight line's an interesting one. I think less is the line. I think that's the play. They're both tough. That's the problem.
Because I think someone's going to fold because they're going to throw bombs. I think Dan's going to come out and know that he's got to finish it early because of all the not lack of sleep. So yeah, we go less probably. I think we said less on pretty much everything. There's a couple tricky ones. It's probably, this is a tough line. It's a tough fight, but I think less. Is this in front of a crowd? Because a lot of times fights are a lot quicker in front of crowds. I'll tell you that because the adrenaline's going, people rushing forward. There's a lot more knockouts. So where's this fight at? I can't remember.
It's in Vegas. That's actually a phenomenal question. I think it is in front of a crowd. Yeah. Only the fight nights are not in front of a crowd. It's in front of a crowd.
I would hope so.
Yeah. This will be a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. No matter what, I'm just hoping. I got money on Nasrat, so I hope he wins and Dan Hooker
Arena. So
doesn't die. Yeah, exactly. So wewantpicks.com/MKF. I like the less in the Monkey Knife Fight line. Dan Hooker's toughness could make that go a little longer, but after the Chandler fight, his chin got progressively worse in his last 3 fights. It didn't get better. I don't think this is going to be much different. Next up, at UFC 266, we have Marlon Moraes versus Merab Dvalishvili. Merab, 13-4 overall, 5-0 in his last 5. He's on an absolute tear lately. Marlon Moraes, 23-8. 2 losses, a win, and then a loss. He's not having the best streak, if you will, but that's what happens. He rose to the top, fought the cream of the crop, and now he's clunking his way back down. Marlon Moraes is an absolute savage. I've managed fighters for 15 years. Unfortunately for me, I was in the position of matching up one of my guys against Marlon Moraes in 2011. We got a call. It was the XFC saying, hey, does Chris want to fight Marlon Moraes? We took a look at his record, did our research, and at the time, Moraes was coming off of 2 losses. He hadn't quite figured out takedown defense yet. Chris, the guy I was managing, solid jiu-jitsu. Okay takedowns, but solid jiu-jitsu. We're like, you know what? That should be a good fight. We should make that happen. And Marlon Moraes absolutely pelted him for 3 rounds, won a decision. And that kicked off. That was the first win in his incredible 5-year unbeaten streak when he was on an absolute tear, destroying the world. Marlon Moraes has phenomenal striking. heavy kicks. When he is on, and he looks like he can beat anybody in the world. The problem is that people have figured out if you pressure Marlon Moraes, if you back him up, he's going to be a step behind. Marlon Moraes puts so much power into those strikes. He literally needs to plant and then throw. And if you're backing him up, he can't plant and throw before you get to him. We just watched that. Rob Font did that the entire time, just lit him up with a jab, stayed in his face, didn't let Marlon Moraes plant. He couldn't get off, and he just was absolutely dismantled. Merab Dvalishvili is a very different matchup for Marlon compared to his last two opponents, right? Instead of two strikers, he's just fighting an absolute savage wrestler, but the same logic to win, the exact same logic. If Merab has forward pressure, backs up Marlon, who loses a step when he's backing up, Merab will get this done. Skill-wise, where he has great conditioning, absolute nonstop chain wrestling. He has solid striking, maybe just okay striking, but he has actual power there. He times his takedowns really, really well. And if he doesn't get the takedown, it doesn't matter because there's another one right behind it. The dude is nonstop with the wrestling. I love Merab in this matchup. The odds makers are, minus 235. They're onto it. I do like this for real. I genuinely like this. So what are you thinking? Other than for some reason disparaging me in the comments, I'm adding personal anecdotes here. My bad. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll come to the defense of Moraes a little bit for Dan because he is an ATT guy, and I think he's going to have a game plan and be ready for the takedowns of Merab. Unfortunately, there's not a game plan that's going to stop this guy. You're going to have a game plan to stop him, but he's going to get through the game plan. He's going to get you to the ground. He's probably going to TKO you. I think it's Merab all the way in this fight. I'm actually surprised he's such a big favorite, but it really makes sense. I figured just because it's Marlon Moraes that it might be like a 150. So over a 2-1 is pretty surprising, but I think it should be there. I think that's pretty good money. So I like Merab all the way in this fight.
Yeah, and listen, Marlon Moraes is a savage, and I don't know why, they're just sort of throwing him out, right? Like he did not beat, even if you look at his last five, he did not beat Jose Aldo. The UFC knows he didn't beat Jose Aldo, which is why Jose got the title shot and he didn't. But I just don't know. There's still a lot there. He's still a young-ish guy. He's really fun to watch. I'm surprised at this matchup. I mean, Merab is a bad matchup for 90-something% of the people in that division. I don't know why you give him Marlon, right? Marlon's a step up on paper, but matchup-wise, it's a pretty straightforward fight. It really is. So we'll see. I mean, if Marlon comes out here and looks like he did 2 years ago, he smokes Merab.
I've never seen a striker out-wrestle a wrestler.
Okay, well, there's no wrestling involved here, and that's your stupid quote from earlier. Yeah. I get it, but come on. On task. Stay on task. So,
Marlon's a striker. There's a wrestler. What do you mean it doesn't go?
You said I've never seen a striker out-wrestle a grappler. Why would he wrestle Merab? He's not going to do that. Shut up.
No, anyway. it's when Merab starts wrestling. That's the point of the quote is Merab starts wrestling and Marlon can't outwork him. I've never seen a striker out-wrestle a wrestler. It means he's going to wrestle and he can't out-wrestle him. Come on, man.
Anyway, thanks for the breakdown there. That was very insightful.
Well, obviously, it was needed.
But listen, Merab, tough, phenomenal wrestling, nonstop wrestling. Marlon Moraes, absolute savage when he's on, has struggled with wrestlers. He struggles with backing up. It's a bad matchup, but this is by far the best fighter Merab has ever fought. And, at one point, looked like he could be champion. So this is tough. What are your thoughts on all these things on the screen, Jacob?
I would look for a something like a TKO finish for Merab.
Yeah, $8,900. I'll probably spend the money. I like the money because at the very least, there's going to be 1 million takedowns. He scores a ton of points in every single DraftKings fight. Money line, honestly, is probably pretty safe. Minus 235. I don't like spending more than minus 190, but it's probably pretty safe. And styles make fights, and he's an interesting style. The strike line, I absolutely despise. I hate it. I absolutely hate the strike line. I have no idea what to do with it. What do you think about the strike line?
Yeah, I have absolutely no idea what to do with it.
Okay. To just absolute, just incredible insight from Jacob. Welcome back. How glad are we that Jacob's back, huh?
Big nasty, baby.
Next up, at UFC 266, we have the main card opener. We have Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo. Jessica Andrade, 21-9, only 2-3 in her last 5. Cynthia Calvillo, 9-2-1. She is 3-1-1 in her last 5. Jessica Andrade was absolutely dominated in her last fight. She lost the striking exchanges. She lost the grappling exchanges. She lost the physical exchanges, right? The bullying. She was bullied big time. But if you look at her losses, they are only to the best women on the planet. This is almost the exact same story that I told last week about Raquel Pennington, except Jessica Andrade is definitely on a different level than Raquel Pennington. She's only lost to champions and former champions, period. That's the end of that. It's easy to look at her last 5 fights and counter out, but honestly, that's a mistake. As far as her skills are concerned, she's a very good striker with a ton of power, and her power isn't just in her hands. She is a bully, and she is strong everywhere. Look how she KO'd Rose. She picked her up, dumped her on her head, knocked her out cold. She knocked out Chikagian or stopped Chikagian with a body shot. I mean, she is a savage with legitimate power. She's got good ground and pound. Her BJJ isn't always the best, and her takedowns are not technical at all. But she's so strong, it doesn't matter. She will pick you up, slam you, pick you up, dump you, pick you up and run it. It doesn't matter. She's so powerful. She makes up for the gaps in her technique. And honestly, her striking is good. It's not very technical, but she makes up for it with speed and power and just raw physicality. When Jessica can be the bully, she can beat anybody. Literally anybody. If she can bully you, she will beat absolutely anybody. But when she can't be the bully, she will lose to clean, solid technique every single time, and that's where she's going to have trouble. Cynthia Calvillo. In many ways, Jessica is the opposite, or Cynthia is the opposite, right? They're opposites of each other. She doesn't rely on her strength at all. She doesn't have much speed. She's not the most powerful woman in the division, but she's super technical. For every pickup and slam from Andrade, Jessica has a clean entry and a solid takedown, right? Andrade is pushing you to the cage, grabbing something, one leg, 2 legs, hips, picking it up. Cynthia is setting up nice, solid, lower her level, nice entry takedowns. When she gets you to the ground, she's solid. She'll soften you up with strikes to sink into submission. Very different approach to the ground game than Andrade, who just wants to beat you up down there. The issue for her, however, is that her striking is not good. And it's obvious at times that she isn't comfortable in a lot of these exchanges. And Jessica is not the person you want to be hesitant with, not the person you want to be uncomfortable with in striking exchanges. She needs to avoid the exchanges, get it to the ground, and work from there. That is her only path to victory, and I don't see that happening. Everything on this screen is correct. The DraftKings price is correct. The odds are correct. I think Jessica Andrade gets this done, bullies the hell out of Cynthia, and just shows everybody why she's always number 2 or 3 in the world. What do you think?
Yeah, is this I think this is at strawweight, isn't it? I think Tapology has it back at 125, which is where Andrade used to dominate.
It says flyweight. I got it at flyweight.
I mean, Tapology says 125, which is strawweight, and you're Mr. Tapology.
I hate Tapology, but go ahead.
The point of it is at 125, Andrade was able to bully people. But in this fight, I really feel like Cynthia is the girl that can really almost out tough Jessica. Usually Andrade is the tougher fighter. Even when she was getting beat up, I still think she's like the tougher fighter, like the tougher person. But Cynthia really is no joke, man. And I don't think a lot of people have put a lot of respect on Cynthia going into this fight. I don't think she's going to win the fight. But at $7,200, I found enough value in her. I think there's going to be some weird scrambles where she can get position, get some strikes off. I think she can threaten submissions against Andrade when Andrade's a little bit too aggressive. I think she's got the toughness to match Andrade. Listen, I don't think by any means that she's going to come out and dominate Andrade. People really don't do that except for, Shevchenko at the higher weight. But I think there's some real value in Cynthia here. So I think she's going to find her way in my lineup. I might switch it because I put the new Arkansas wrestling lock of the week in there. So I might have to switch some things around, but right now she's in my lineup at that $7,200.
Yeah. I mean, the way you can't trust anything Jacob just said is he just argued that this fight was at 125 and it says flyweight on the screen and blah, blah, blah. 125 is flyweight. You absolute clown.
Well, I mean, you went deep diving in your phone. So
I didn't go deep diving. I'm getting my
you were deep diving on your phone.
I'm getting my screen ready for the next fight, you clown. Anyway,
but my point reigns true that she's back at 125, which is obviously flyweight. I don't know what Angelo was talking about.
Yeah.
And then, but I don't think she's going to be able to bully Cynthia like she did the other 125ers. So that's the only difference that I see.
Yeah, so we have very different. Is this the first time we disagreed? No, we disagreed earlier with your lock, but we've got very different picks.
My pick is Andrade.
But you're saying she's not going to bully, and if she can't bully, she can't win. It's that simple.
Well, then I guess.
Anyway, I'll spend the $9,000. I'm probably not going to touch moneyline bet. Monkey knife fight, man. If this goes to a decision, I think they get past that. I don't know if Jessica's going to be able to stop here. I think she'll stop her. I actually like the less. I like the less. I think she'll stop her. I disagree with more. I disagree with putting Cynthia in your lineup. I mean, I think she gets pounded on here, but we'll see what happens. wewantpicks.com/MKF. I like the less. Let me know what you guys like in the comments, because this is an interesting strike line. Basically, if it goes to a decision, they should blow past it. But I think Jessica is expected to have one fewer strike, but still dominate this fight. It's an interesting line, interesting matchup. We'll see what happens. Next up, at UFC 266, we have an absolute clash of styles. We have Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Curtis Blaydes, 14-3 overall, 4-1 in his last 5, coming off of that bad knockout loss to Derek Lewis. Rozenstruik, 12-2 overall, alternating wins and losses in his last 5. And honestly, this is a pretty hard fight to pick. I know people are just running, wrestling versus striking, wrestling wins. This is a hard. I've
never seen a striker out wrestle a wrestler.
Oh my God. People who are watching these videos individually and not all of it at once are probably like, what? No, they're probably like, yeah, it's a good line. That makes sense. Yeah, that's solid. Wow, the red hair. He's got this. It's more than just a pretty face. It's a hard fight to pick, honestly. It's a super straightforward fight. We have grappler versus striker. And if we didn't see Blaydes just get knocked out cold by Derek Lewis the way he did, this would be the easiest pick of the card. Curtis Blaydes has fantastic wrestling. He's a heavyweight who wrestles like a welterweight. He's got fast, clean entries to double legs, single legs. He touches the legs and he runs right through them. This is not heavyweight wrestling. Even Daniel Cormier, who's a nasty Olympic wrestler, doesn't wrestle the way Curtis Blaydes does in MMA. Daniel Cormier doesn't lower his level and take shots. Right? He works you against the cage. He'll get an underhook. Then he might lower his level. Then he'll grab a single. Little whizzer. But a whizzer is when you're defending takedowns. Shut your mouth. Curtis Blaydes will actually drop elevation and take a clean shot. And heavyweights who are not ready for that, heavyweights train wrestling defense against the cage 99% of the time. So when they're not ready for that, Curtis Blaydes does exactly what he does to everybody else. He gets you to the ground and he just lights up your face with elbows, with punches. He has really nice hips. He will keep you on the mat, control you the entire round. You're not going to pop back up. And most heavyweights are honestly not prepared for that style of wrestling. When you look at credentials, Curtis Blaydes isn't anywhere near the credentials of Daniel Cormier. But if you look at their body of work, Curtis Blaydes is 10 times a more effective wrestler in MMA than Daniel Cormier was. Rozenstruik, very heavy-handed striker. He had a nice bounce-back win after the most boring fight of the century against Gane. He had that nice win against Sakai. And what was interesting about that fight is we saw him pushing the pace. So his loss against Gane, that fight sucked. It was boring. They both did nothing. Purists will say, it was a technical wizardry. No, it was nonsense. It was awful. It was a boring fight. But against Sakai, he's coming forward. He's pushing the face. He's pushing the pace. And historically, Rozenstruik is a counter striker. He waits for his shots. He can fall behind on the scorecards, but he waits for his shots and then he takes them. And when he takes them, he takes them. But in that fight, he was coming forward. He was pushing the pace. We've seen him fall behind on scorecards. We've seen him fall behind in fights and then claw his way back for a win. The problem is he relies on big exchanges for that. It happened with Junior Dos Santos. It happened with Overeem. And it was happening with Gane. He never got that big exchange to win it, but he was letting himself fall behind on the scorecards. This should be an easy pick for Blades. It should be. But Blades has to fight a perfect fight to win, and I'm not sure if he will. If we get the Rosenstruck that fought Sakai, Rosenstruck wins. The one that comes forward, the one that's going to let his hands go as soon as Blades lowers his level, that one will win. But if we get the Rosenstruck that's the counter striker, I don't see him stopping the takedowns. Curtis Blades is my pick, but this is a much harder pick to come to than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people think, oh, nasty wrestler, striker, done, pick's over. What do you think?
Nasty striker, grappler, pick's done, over. I think Blades wins this fight. It's going to be copy and paste of the Derek Lewis fight. Rosenstruck's going to be sitting, waiting for the uppercut, waiting for the shot. I think Blades is going to be wise of it. You've seen him bounce back before after a brutal knockout versus, Ngannou, who came back and won 4 in a row. I don't think it really phases him. He's kind of a level-headed guy. He says, listen, I know what I'm good at. I know the fans hate it. And that makes me want to do it more. He's one of those guys that just wants to spite people. I think he gets on the legs. He makes it boring. He drags this thing out, and he dominates the fight. So obviously there's always going to be that one-shot ability by Rosenstruck. I don't think he's going to come forward and blitz Blades and overwhelm him. Blades is going to get this fight to the ground, and he's going to control the fight.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, right? I think there's challenges here. Curtis, his 2 losses are 2 vicious knockouts, or 2 of his losses are 2 vicious knockouts. We just watched him dominate wrestling and then get knocked out. There is a game plan there in place. It's only a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. So Curtis Blades just has to do what he does. Basically, Curtis Blades only needs to take 3 shots to win this fight. If he can execute 3 solid takedowns, he will win this fight. The problem is, every fight starts on his feet, and he has to do it 3 times. And as we saw with the Derek Lewis fight, it's a little harder than you may assume. What do you think?
That's what she said.
No. What do you think of the strike line? That's an interesting one, right? If Blades getting a bunch of takedowns, elbow. 31 strikes is a lot. If Rosenstruck lands 31 strikes, he might put Curtis Blades out.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about the strike line?
Oh my God. The preparation is very obvious when this. Anyway, here's my thoughts on the strike line. I think it's got to be, you got to pick a side. Because if you think it is hard, because Curtis Blades is going to take down Rosenstruck. Is he going to do it more than once and win the fight? I don't know, but he's definitely going to take down Rosenstruck. And when he's on top, he's busy. So he should be able to get the 62.5 if we end up in the 3rd round. Rosenstruck, I don't think he's going to land. If we end up in the 3rd round, that means that he was on his back the whole time. So we're going to get more from Curtis, less from Rosenstruck.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I thought you
were done. Rosenstruck gets off 30-something shots in the 1st and 2nd round, he'll probably put Blades away, and it'll be less. So, it's either more less or less, and honestly.
Yeah, this is one of those to look at for inside the distance decision, no action for Rosenstruck. You're probably not going to get great odds. It's probably going to be like 170 or minus 170, minus 190, something like that. But that's probably one you might want to throw some money at, because he could end the night with one punch at any moment, or he could be on his back the entire fight.
I know you'll get better odds than that. He's a plus 270 underdog. If you do wins inside the distance, but a decision is no action on a plus 270 underdog, you'll probably get. You might even get plus odds on that. That bet is an interesting one. You'll only get it at wewantpicks.com/bets. Basically, if Rosenstruck gets the knockout that a lot of people think he will, you get paid. If he loses a decision on his back the entire time, you get a refund. So do you think, the biggest question there for that bet is, do you think he can withstand a beating on bottom? If he can, then that's the bet to make, guaranteed, because he loses, no big deal. If not, you're screwed. So it's a hard line. You got to make a decision to bet this line, to play this line. I'm not touching it. I don't like minus 330 either. Like Curtis Blades, I think he wins the fight because he only needs to get 3 takedowns to win this fight, but I'm not spending minus 330 on a dude that we've seen knocked out cold try to execute the exact same game plan. Next up, at UFC 266, We have a really fun, weird, exciting, strange, ridiculous fight, which I'm looking forward to. We have Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler, 28-15 overall, riding a 4-fight losing streak. Nick Diaz, 26-9, has not fought in 6 years. Coming off of a 5-year suspension, he had a no contest, 2 losses, and 2 wins. His last win was 9 years and 9 months ago. Okay, that's the last time Nick Diaz won. So this is a crazy fight, right? And it's crazy for 100 different reasons. It's a rematch from 16 years ago. It's the comeback of a guy who hasn't fought in 5 years, and it is a 5-round fight. This is not a 3-round fight. It's a 5-round fight. It's not for a belt. It's just 5 rounds because Nate Diaz did that a few weeks ago, and then Nick was like, hell, if I can fight 5 rounds, I'll fight 5 rounds. Robbie Lawler, again, this is a rematch from 38 years ago. At that time, 16 years ago when they fought, Robbie was an incredibly powerful kid. I think he was like 19 or 20. He was just taking people's heads off. Nick basically gave him his first loss. He had a loss before that, but it was an injury. He basically gave him his first loss. He lost his next fight, and then he left the UFC until his career resurgence in 2013 and 14 when he came back to the UFC. I'm talking about Robbie Lawler. When he came back to the UFC and became champion. Skill-wise, Robbie's a technical brawler who knows how to wrestle. He has a wrestling background. He was a wrestler, then got into MMA, loved just brawling and throwing bombs. And over the years, he took the brawling style, added sort of very technical aspects to it, but kept the brawling style. So, he's a technical brawler, as ridiculous as that sounds. It's an oxymoron. He has a ton of fun. He's a ton of fun to watch because, he will use his technique and do the right things, and then he will get sucked into an absolute war. And if anybody's going to suck him into a war, it is Nick Diaz. If you watch his title fights with Rory McDonald, it was clean technique at range. He'll fire nice shots, and then he gets inside the pocket, and it's an absolute brawl. And the problem is he's definitely older. He has taken a ton of damage, and he is declining quickly. Nick Diaz, he's coming off that 5-year suspension, and you may say, oh my God, 5 years. He must have taken all the steroids in the world.
He must have killed somebody.
No, he smoked a little weed. Now.
But you shouldn't do that.
Well, listen, straight up, now they didn't make it.
It kills your brain cells.
It
kills your brain cells. Don't do it.
Now they've changed the regulations that you can have it in your system, and I forget the math. Basically, if you smoke that day, you're gonna fail whatever the limit is. But you can smoke weed now, and it's not that big of a deal.
You will die. If you smoke weed, you will die.
In fairness to the rules, Nick Diaz knew the rules, and it wasn't his first violation, and that's why it was a 5-year suspension. It's an absurd suspension. They did him dirty. I think they offered some relief, and he just was absolutely like, no, screw you. I'm not taking it. I'll serve my full 5. Anyway, you have to love Nick Diaz. If you're newer to this sport and you only know Nate Diaz, his little brother, Nick is basically not a mirror image, but they fight very similarly, except Nick is way smarter. First of all, he can form a full sentence, which Nate struggles with. But second of all, he has higher fight IQ. He's a better fighter than Nate is. And you're doing the Nate Diaz pose, not the Nick. But okay.
They all do that.
They all. Wow. Unbelievable. He's a high-volume, move-forward boxer. He has very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And just like his brother, he does not have very good takedowns. He's not going to throw any kicks. And listen, to anybody who knows who's going to win this fight, who's like, oh, Nick Diaz is going to destroy, Robbie Lawler's going to, anybody who has a hard stance on this fight is crazy. How you could draw a line in the sand and say this is absolutely what's going to happen when you have a dude on a 4-fight loss streak versus a guy on a 3-fight streak, that no win streak, that hasn't fought in 6 years. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen here. And if you're positive and you're pretending you're positive, you're out of your mind. Nobody knows what's going to happen. With that being said, I'm picking Nick Diaz, and it defies all logic. Like, my gut is saying, no, that's stupid. But if I think about it, the time off only hurt. That 6-year time period or whatever, that hurt Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler has taken, he became champion and had amazing things happen in his career, but it took years off of his life. He was in some all-timers and some absolute devastating wars. Years have been taken off of his life. And I just, I just don't know what that's going to look like. I think Nick Diaz comes out with 1 million strikes on his feet. If it ends up on the ground, there'll be some trouble there. I don't know how it'll get to the ground, though, because Nick's not shooting a takedown. That's a lot of talking for me. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I just placed a bet on this fight because I forgot it was a 5-rounder for goes the distance no at plus 105. I thought that was a pretty good one. I think one of these guys is going to come out and look a lot better than the other guy. I don't know who it's going to be, like you mentioned with the layoff, but I think somebody comes out and looks a lot sharper than the other person. The odds makers actually give Nick a lot of credit because of the big layoff. We saw earlier the odds for his friend that's got the big layoff, obviously different level of fighter, but you would think 5 years off, that would at least give him, Robbie at least like a minus 150 or something. So somebody knows something or somebody doesn't know anything to make this a pick 'em. My pick's actually going to be Robbie because I think he's been, he's looked decent. He's not like a guy that's going out like Cowboy, right? Where Cowboy just can't do anything right and is just getting beat on to end his career. Robbie was winning that fight versus Ben Askren. He lost to Dos Anjos, he lost to Woodley, he lost to Colby Covington, Neil Magny. Those were just decision losses. Those weren't TKOs. He kind of got dominating those fights, but he didn't look, awful. He wasn't getting finished. So I think he comes out and honestly looks like the sharper fighter, looks like a guy that's been active. And I think Nick finds himself in some trouble early, and we'll see if he can weather that storm after a 5-year layoff. So I like Robbie. I don't love the Robbie pick, but I like Robbie in this fight just because he's been more active.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. I'm really looking forward to it. It's super interesting. Honestly, it's better for the sport if Nick Diaz goes out there and puts on a show. That is better for the sport. There's more matchups waiting for him. And honestly, that 5-year layoff, we talked about it earlier when we talked about Dan Hooker, and not that Nick Diaz. So Nick Diaz takes damage. Both him and his brother have like all sorts of, and Nick Diaz actually had surgery to have plates put in here so he doesn't bleed. But the Diaz brothers get their skin rips and they bleed immediately. So when you watch their fights, it looks like they're taking a ton of damage, but it's not brain damage. It's all cosmetic. But, that time off could only have helped his body, but I don't know what that did for his timing. I don't know what that did for anybody else. He's obviously training. He runs.
Yeah, he kind of took that layoff that you wish Dan Hooker would take, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and obviously he's been training. He's been helping his brother. But training to help somebody and training for a fight are very different things. He's been running marathons, triathlons, whatever it is. Like, we have to assume he's in shape. I'm going to assume he's going to be a step behind for a round or two. But even Nick Diaz's volume, a step behind, his chin should be good. So Robbie Lawler is going to land some shots because his timing will be more clean. But Nick Diaz's chin should be good. It's taken no damage in 5 years. So ton of fun. DraftKings drew a line in the sand. They picked the winner. It's not a pick 'em as far as DraftKings is concerned. They went $8,300 on Robbie Lawler. And honestly, if I'm putting one in my lineup, Nick Diaz is the better value. 7,000 something. He throws 200 million strikes in a fight. I already played the more on Monkey Knife Fight. So I threw a little bit on that. It is a 5-round fight. And as powerful as Robbie Lawler is, he's basically a stationary target at times. And Nick Diaz is just going to let those hands fly. So I took the more. What do you think about that line?
Yeah, 5 rounds, you got to go more probably. Because these guys are both just tough as shit. So
yeah, super tough. The 81 actually worries me more than the 121. But we'll see what happens. wewantpicks.com/MKF. It is a ton of fun, super easy. You get an instant deposit match with promo code WWP. All you need to do is say more or less than the strike line you see on the screen, and you can 2.5 times your money all the way up to 25 times your money. Ton of fun, super easy. wewantpicks.com/MKF. Next up at UFC 266, we have Valentina Shevchenko defending her flyweight, which is 125 pounds. Her flyweight title against Lauren Murphy. Valentina Shevchenko, one of the best to ever do it. 21-3 overall, 5-0 in her last 5, and her only losses are a distant memory to Amanda Nunes, essentially. And then Lauren Murphy, 15-4 overall, riding the win streak of the century for a woman that at one point was like, okay, this is probably it for her. She's a little older. Now she's 38, but a little older, not really great anywhere. This is probably it for her. Put together an awesome win streak and finds herself vying for a title on Saturday night. Valentina Shevchenko, legit one of the best fighters on the planet, regardless of gender, weight division, or any of that. She is a phenomenal striker, very good grappler, and has true championship composure and mindset. Her striking is some of the best in any division. And it's honestly, she lost to Amanda Nunes. She has better striking than Amanda Nunes. She just doesn't have that just savage power that Amanda has. But she's a very technical, clean striker and does have power. Just there's levels to the power. She's very technical. She has enough power to keep people away, put people away. The last few years, we've seen her game evolve. Her last fight, she had takedowns, she bullied Jessica, and she used a complete MMA arsenal to the point where it looked like she was trying to prove a point. It looked like she was trying to say, I'll beat you at what you're good at. You want to be bullied? I'll bully you. You want me to take you down? I'll take you down. And that's honestly what it looked like in her last fight. And that just shows how much even a champion, even somebody at that level of striking, having the success in the striking department, the amount that she has evolved in the last few years is absolutely incredible. Valentina Shevchenko will go down as one of the best to ever do it. Lauren Murphy earned this title shot. 5 solid wins in a row. None of them were pretty. None of them. But they were all really well-fought fights. She is a grinder. She's gritty. She's tough. She has incredible will and determination, and she will stick to a game plan. Wrestling and muscle clinch work is her skill set, and muscle clinch work. It's not the cleanest technique, but she's so strong, so determined, has so much willpower. She's made it happen, especially in her last 5 fights. And her strength is her biggest asset. Her striking is sloppy, but it's there. It's in your face. She has a very, very narrow path to victory. She needs to somehow bully Shevchenko. She needs to do to Shevchenko what Jessica Andrade wanted to do. Get in there, stay in her face, bully her, push her up against the cage, just out-strength her, big brother her, if you will. And her size and strength, honestly, there may be a little bit of that. She is big, she is strong, but all that's going to do is make Shevchenko clean up any technique, stick to the technique, and just absolutely light up Lauren Murphy. Everything about this is 100% accurate. She is a minus 1,600 favorite. Should be. I don't see many surprises. What do you think?
Yeah, they're just kind of running out of people at this point. Listen, Chevy's going to win, and they just got to fight Nunes again. You just have to do it. I know she lost twice already, but they're both just running out of people. You just got to meet again. They got to fight again. Chevy's going to win this fight. The only thing I will mention, which this could make the recap on Sunday morning, Lauren Murphy, her nickname is Lucky. That's all I'm saying.
Well, listen, I mean, sheer will and determination. I mean, she's like that mom that lifted the car off her kid. Like she does it. And she has that willpower and the willingness to go out there. There's just levels to this.
Yeah, it's going to be wherever, like you mentioned, wherever Valentina wants to take this fight, she can take it. I think her judo and grappling is so underrated. Valentina, she'll get in that clinch, just body lock you, and just throw you across the octagon. I mean, everyone talks about her striking, but her judo throws and everything are just incredible. And she's in perfect position out of them too. It's complete side control. I mean, it's just unreal how good she is. So I'm just waiting for her to fight Nunes again.
Yeah, Valentina Shevchenko's the pick. I will put her in my DraftKings lineup. I mean, $9,500 is a lot of money, but we're talking 5 rounds and the most dominant champion, almost the second most dominant champion against a journeyman who's really put it together in the last couple of fights. I think $9,500 is the money to spend. There's not a single bet that I'm going to touch. There's not a single bet. I don't know what you could bet on that would even be worth the risk. Lauren Murphy's not going to win. So there's nothing on that side. And then Valentina Shevchenko, I mean, look at the money line. Even crazy prop bets, even TKO round 3 is still going to be minus money. So that's just not going to be worth it. Monkey knife fight, let's say less. I mean, Lauren Murphy's super tough, and 56 strikes may not be that hard, but let's say less. Shevchenko will touch her up, feel her out, and then put her away in, let's say, round 3. So I like less.
That's a bold prediction there you just made. It's very interesting.
And I hate doing specific
you can
stuff.
Take round 3 Shevchenko for plus 550.
I cannot believe that's plus money.
First round plus 240, plus 350, plus 550, plus 1,000, plus 1,600 for round 5 Shevchenko.
Let's do the math on that. You might be able to bet every single one as long as there's a stoppage, you win money. Because what's Shevchenko by stoppage?
Shevchenko by stoppage.
Minus
distance is minus 285.
Yeah. So there's got to be some math to figure out there where you can bet on a stoppage in each round and still make money. Definitely more money than the overall.
Inside the distance decision, no action, Valentino is still minus 1,500.
Yeah. Well,
either way, for a KO finish.
What do you say?
Minus 105 for a KO or a TKO for Shevchenko.
I imagine it's KO, TKO, and not a submission. But what are your thoughts on the Monkey Knife Fight line?
Probably less. I think Shevchenko ends this pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. That's probably a solid play. And honestly, this might be a week where Knockout Kings. I'm not going to do 3 for 3. That's a pain. But I might up it, do 2. Maybe Shevchenko will be in there. Chevy, as you like to call her.
Chevy
should be an interesting fight. Just out of sheer witnessing history, you watch Michael Jordan play basketball. You watch Valentina Shevchenko defend her belt. So this should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. And we'll see what happens. wewantpicks.com. Promos, matches, giveaways. Next up, at UFC 266, we have the main event of the evening, the culmination of this season of The Ultimate Fighter. We have Alexander Volkanovski defending his belt against Brian Ortega. Alexander Volkanovski, 22-1 overall on a very long, nice win streak. Brian Ortega, 15-1 overall. That only loss coming to Max Holloway 2 fights ago. This actually is a really interesting matchup. If I didn't watch much of The Ultimate Fighter, I did watch enough to break down that card and do the bets on the finale. But, it actually seemed like these two kind of like each other, get along. Any sort of bickering is just bickering because it's 2 professional fighters in a house. But they're both decent dudes, good personalities. Skill-wise, Volkanovski has been the champion for 2 years, and we have only seen him fight 1 person, which is actually a pretty interesting stat. 2 full years as the featherweight champion, we've only seen him fight 1 human being. So this will be a very interesting fight, and it'll tell us a lot about him and his reign as champion, right? We don't know if he's going to be a true dominant champion or if his skill set just perfectly aligns with Max.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that thought he lost both those fights too.
Yeah. I thought he lost the first one. I didn't think he lost the second one. Either way, Alexander's a very good striker. He has legit speed with his hands and feet. He uses kicks really well. He uses combinations to set up super clean takedowns. His takedowns for a guy without a wrestling background are very clean. And a lot of it's because he's so fast. He's a short guy, but he doesn't struggle finding the head. His footwork is solid. He comes in super fast. He can get to that head. Or the hips, right? That exact same footwork that gets him there to come up top. He lowers his level, shoots those solid takedowns. He's very strong. He doesn't necessarily possess like crazy knockout power, but he is super strong. And a lot of that strength comes from when he was 300 something pounds playing rugby back in the day. 300 something pounds. The dude's like 5'2.5". Him and Jacob stand next to each other.
Do you know the story about that? It's actually kind of a funny story because of his accent. Somebody asked me in an interview once, what was your playing weight in rugby? And he said, I was about 215. And people thought that he said 250 instead of 215. So he said, people thought I was 250. I just kind of went with it. So everyone thought he was 250 playing rugby, but I think he was only 215. But still, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. All right. So I was off by quite a few pounds. I thought it was all the way up to 300, but even 215, the dude is like what, 5'2"? How tall is he?
He's 5'5".
He's 5'6", featherweight. He does have that strength. He doesn't have raw KO power, which is surprising because he's so fast and everything's so well timed. But incredible striker, very well-rounded overall. Brian Ortega, a phenomenal grappler, a very capable striker. He doesn't have great wrestling, which honestly, that is always really bizarre to me when you're that good at jiu-jitsu and didn't get your wrestling up to par to get to the mat, right? If that's where you want to be, how did you not hone in your wrestling to get there? A la Ryan Hall. If he is able to tie you up and work you to the ground, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Anybody would be in a lot of trouble. And a lot of people counted out Brian Ortega with his fight against Korean Zombie because of how bad he looked against Max. I thought he was going to be really competitive against Max Holloway, and he wasn't. I mean, that was not a competitive fight. He got beat up pretty good. MMA math doesn't work, right? So you can't just say, oh, well, Max beat Brian and Volkanovski beat Max, so that's it. Pick's over. But he looked fantastic against Korean Zombie. He went out there, executed a solid game plan. He won a great fight. You know, Volkanovski is the better striker. Volkanovski is definitely the better wrestler. He is not the better grappler. So the question is, how much better has Brian Ortega's striking gotten? Because he is a good striker. I don't think it's a giant gap. But how much better has Brian Ortega's striking gotten? And can he take Volkanovski down to impose a grappling game plan? I don't know. Volkanovski's shorter. Brian Ortega doesn't have good takedowns. I don't know. Volkanovski's my pick, but what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, first of all, bless you. Times two. Bless you times two. Listen, I used to be a big Brian Ortega fan, and everyone knows the drama that me and Ortega have had in the past year. He kind of took my girl Tracy Cortez, so we kind of got a little beef. But I'm gonna try and be unbiased as I can in this breakdown. Put that personal stuff aside. I do like Brian Ortega as a fighter, but Volkanovski, man, he is just so technical. I don't know if Brian's going to be able to get in that range where he can work submissions and try to get this fight to the ground. I think he's going to get beat up on the way in, kind of what you saw with Max. Listen, Ortega is very, very tough because that was a doctor stoppage where he was just absolutely destroyed and was still coming forward against Max. And I agree. It's gonna come down to, has Brian Ortega worked on his striking? Because his success in his striking, like against Korean Zombie, was the the weird stuff, the spinning elbows, the weird stuff. Is he working on a jab? Is he working on his two? Is he working on his check left? That's what I'm interested in with Brian Ortega in this fight, because I don't think Volkanovski is going to shoot one takedown with the guillotine that Brian Ortega has. I think he keeps his distance. He works the leg kicks. He just kind of pieces Ortega in. I would like to see Ortega win this fight. I think the division would get a lot more interesting if he does win, especially if he comes out and wins in style and fashion, catch something weird, chokes him out. Then you have a whole trio of what you could do with Max Holloway in that situation, because I want to see Max get back to the title fight. But anyway, I think Volkanovski's going to win this fight. He's in my lineup, but I'm kind of rooting for Brian on the back end, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I like both of them, and I think I would enjoy both of them as champion, both of them in their career. Brian Ortega is super young. He still has a bunch of time to develop, or at least, seemingly so, right? I don't know his exact age, but he seems fresher and younger and has more time to develop. But he's a fun, interesting guy. He's cool in interviews, fun to watch. Alexander Volkanovski is just a hilarious dude. Both these guys are cool. I'm just going to watch and enjoy. I don't know what money I'm going to put on this fight. Alexander Volkanovski will probably be in my DraftKings lineup. $8,600 for a dude. He is the champion. He puts up points. He works in takedowns. He throws a ton of strikes. I think the more on the monkey knife fight line is probably pretty solid here, unless Volkanovski comes out with a wrestling game plan, but I don't think he will, right? Why would he?
I don't think it would either. But if he does, Ortega's submission is plus 350, which is interesting. Brian Ortega is listen, at the end of the day, there's Damian Maia and then a couple people and then everybody else. If you're getting taken down, I'm not going to hear about Ryan. I can't wrestle.
Hall.
It's Mackenzie Dern at the very, that's the Francis Ngannou of grappling, then Ryan Hall, then maybe Maia, and then everyone else.
Well, my point is, throwing up submissions off your back is a very different game than taking people down and working from there. And Damian Maia knows that. That's why later in his career, he started to wrestle and did really well wrestling, because he knew, if this is where I want to be, I have to dictate how it gets there. Otherwise, I'm on my back eating elbow sandwiches looking for triangles. So if Volkanovski does a wrestle-heavy game plan, which I don't expect, he may be able to do well, honestly, because he'll be on top. But I think Volkanovski wins. I think it's honestly a pretty straightforward win. But if Brian Ortega came out there, showed really clean striking, obviously we know his jiu-jitsu solid, then it would be surprising, but not like crazy shocking. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know where my money's going. If it goes anywhere, it's probably the more and more monkey knife fight. I'll do some DraftKings with Volkanovski, but I don't think I'm going to have any bets here. Maybe the over on rounds. I'll check the round lines.
What do you think? What did you say on the strike line? I'd go more and more.
That's what I said, the over. Yeah, more and more. Okay. So, either way, interesting fight. wewantpicks.com/MKF for monkey knife fights. wewantpicks.com/bets for our betting promos. All of them have free deposit matches. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. We're going to be doing a whole bunch more videos this week. We have a DraftKings lineup breakdown video. We have a monkey knife fight breakdown video, and we're going to do our full betting guide. And if any of these fights, depending on how the week goes, start to, evolve, right? Weigh-ins change, things happen. Maybe we'll do another breakdown of some of the closer ones. Either way, thanks for the watch. Like, subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow when I drop the rest of